I'm just going to tell folks right now that this is going to be a heavier show than normal just because of the topic matter. But we will still try to make it enjoyable and not as depressing as we both feel about the world going into it. So, you ready?
Yeah.
Am I recording? I am. That's amazing. Here we go.
It only takes a little to help a lot. To show your support for Daily Tech News Show, go to patreon.com/acedetect and pledge just $1 per month. That's patreon.com/ACEDTECT.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, August 20th, 2014. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Jeff Cannata, the newly launched We Have Concerns. You might know him from the Totally Rad show back in the day. He's got all kinds of ventures going on. How's it going, Jeff Cannata?
It's going well. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining me today. It's always good to chat with you about stuff.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we've got some big stuff to talk about. We are going to discuss Twitter and YouTube and the internet's response to the video of reporter James Foley being killed. So it's a weighty topic, but we think it's an important topic, especially as we negotiate a new world where things like Twitter and YouTube have become the news for a lot of people. But let's start off with the headlines. CNET reported on Barnes & Noble's announcement of the Galaxy Tab 4 Nook, essentially the same hardware as the 7-inch Samsung Galaxy Tab 4, but with Nook's software, Nook's custom interface. Although it is still Android. You get the Google Play Store, you get Google Maps, you get all that good stuff. There's only one model. It has 8 gigabytes of storage, though because it's a Tab 4, it does come with an SD card slot, so you can expand it. The other difference is the price. The Samsung Galaxy Tab 4 lists for $199. However, the Nook reduces that to $179 after an in-store rebate. So if you get the Galaxy Tab 4 with the word Nook at the end, you pay $20 less. Barnes & Noble intends to separate the Nook business from its book-selling business eventually, and they reiterated that as a part of today's announcement. So go Nook. Yay.
Books aren't nooks. That's their separation slogan.
once they're actually separated, yeah. Engadget reports Uber has launched a free API allowing programmers to embed the ability to hail a ride from within any app. 11 partners are alongside for the launch, mostly travel services, things like TripAdvisor, United Airlines, Hyatt Hotels. Other apps sort of make sense too. Starbucks, coffee shops, dating site Hinge. You might need rides for those sorts of things. Most of the apps will start by just passing an address to the Uber app, but truly embedded ride-hailing is on the horizon with a subset of partners.
This is how it begins, I think. This is why you hear horrible Silicon Valley catchwords like disruption. This is disruption, I think. This is the beginning of the end of cabs, and I mean, I don't think cabs are ever going to really go away, but this is baby steps toward ubiquity with these kinds of connected movement through the world.
Yeah, so I can totally see the Starbucks app in this. I mean, the travel ones make perfect sense, obviously, but I go in the Starbucks, I use my app, I pay for my coffee, I sit down, I open my laptop, I do my work. Next thing you know, I pick up the phone, Starbucks app is still there. I'm like, oh, get a ride from here, right? Because it knows where you are. Press the button, send your address to Uber, boom, you're on your way.
Yeah, it's great, and I think this is just the beginning of a lot of other places that are going to integrate that, and as it becomes more than just pass your address along, as it becomes really built into these other services, I think it's going to be very convenient and great to use.
I think we're going to see more of this too with iOS 8 allowing more extensions and more cooperation between different apps. You already have that in Android, but so many developers are iOS first that they don't necessarily implement what they could in Android. And with iOS doing it, sad to say, that'll allow them to have more flexibility because they can do it in all their apps.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
On Tuesday, Twitter implemented a new policy of removing images of deceased individuals at the request of family. Now, that policy was created in the wake of some nasty stuff that happened after Robin Williams' death, but it was put to the test immediately when a video of the killing of journalist James Foley was put online. Various accounts have been suspended in relation to the Foley imagery. The video created by the Islamic State not only runs afoul of this new policy, but also could bring Twitter up against laws providing against providing aid and comfort to organizations that are identified by the U.S. government as being terrorist organizations. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Engadget reports the effect of competition is being felt in Apple's backyard. AT&T announced it would bring its GigaPower brand gigabit internet to Cupertino, California in a few months. Google intends to bring gigabit internet to the nearby larger metropolis of San Jose, California, but it has not announced a timeline. So this is AT&T getting there first, the way they've done in Austin as well, where Google has announced they're bringing fiber.
Yeah, man. Just get LA on that list. I want that. I need it. Give it to me, please.
Yeah, pretty much insert, if you aren't one of these cities that's getting this, put my city here on that list.
Sure.
And what it is competition. You see Google coming in and saying, yeah, we want to do this, and suddenly there's scrambling. Even in places where Google hasn't announced, just kind of the thought that they might, like, they might be coming here. We better start to push forward. That's what we need. We need choice. We need competition that drives people forward. And I have no problem with AT&T being first, because competition is going to make AT&T better.
Exactly. Yeah, this is all what we were all hoping for when we heard about Google Fiber back however many years ago that was. We were hoping that everybody would try to scramble to catch up. I don't know any statistics about the size difference between San Jose and Austin, but I suspect San Jose is larger population-wise, and that's encouraging to me. I like that they're trying to bite off larger metropolitan areas, and it encourages me that this is a doable thing that's going to happen sooner than maybe we were expecting.
Yeah, as a megalopolis, I can guarantee you San Jose is bigger than Austin. Austin is a large city with some suburbs. San Jose is part of Silicon Valley, so it just is continuous suburbs from San Jose on up to Oakland and San Francisco. Like you say, it's a big bite to attempt to chew. Wall Street Journal reports Amazon plans to set up operations in Shanghai's free trade zone, allowing it to sell more merchandise for overseas in China. Amazon does sell domestic products right now. Amazon will
Freudian slip there.
Freudian slip, I know. Amazon will also open a logistics warehouse in China to expand exports of goods from Chinese companies. This is all targeting Alibaba. Alibaba is the dominant e-commerce power in China these days. Wired reports Vine announced new tools for the 6-second video service. Users can now add video from their device rather than having to shoot all the video in the app. Other features included duplicating buttons. So if you do 3 seconds, you can hit that and duplicate those 3 seconds over again, for example. A mute button to take out a certain portion of audio from a video, and a torch mode, which lets you use the phone's flashlight while you're recording, sort of as a rudimentary lighting aid. Vine says more than 100 million people watch Vine videos every month. There are Vine stars, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm aware of this. I'm not aware of who they are, but how do you feel about this? Because I feel like everybody's been using other apps to do this anyway in the big Vine community. So I guess it's kind of no change, but it also sort of violates the idea of what Vine was supposed to be, right?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. And I think if you have this many people using it, I think you want to try to cast the net a little wider. And you've sort of said, okay, we've had our 140 character limit. Now we need to start tweaking that where it's logical, right? I'm saying the analog to 140 character limit. So what Twitter did was, all right, you can put pictures and they'll show up embedded. You can have a link and we won't count the characters in the link against your 140 character limit. And I feel like this is the same idea of like, all right, it's still 6 seconds, but let's give you some adaptability. I think the mute thing, particularly, if I do 6 seconds and something unexpected happens, having the ability to get that out of there means I can still use a video I might have had to delete otherwise.
Yeah, and they're rewarding creativity here. They're giving tools to make more sophisticated Vine videos, which is going to only make people want to watch Vine videos more.
And I guess, it's still 6 seconds, right? Even if you have a 2-minute video that you're uploading into Vine, you can only upload 6 seconds of it. You have to identify what 6 seconds. It's kind of like when talkies came along.
We remember that.
You and I, we go back. Time now for some news from you. These are things in particularly, lots of things in the show are submitted by the audience, but these are things I like to highlight that showed up at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Join the thousands of people in there submitting news and voting on it. It really helps me figure out what you guys are interested in. At least you subredditors are interested in. And you've always got interesting stuff in there, like Captain Kipper posting the Ars Technica article that Netflix and Time Warner Cable have agreed to an interconnection agreement back in June. Nobody noticed until now. GigaOM was doing a trace route and noticed that, hey, that's going through a different route. Time Warner Cable must have done an interconnection agreement. And yes, a spokesperson from Time Warner Cable confirmed it to Ars Technica. Netflix has struck deals now with Comcast, AT&T, and Verizon, as well as TWC, for interconnection. These are similar to deals struck by many companies who deal in large amounts of data. Instead of paying a CDN to deliver it, they deliver it themselves, so they have to strike the deal directly. Google does this, Facebook does this, Apple does it. The difference is Netflix has tried to do it without paying, and they've been successful with some ISPs and not with others, and they've complained very loudly about the ones that they've been forced to pay.
And greasing all the wheels now, though.
Yeah. Well, and they're still yelling about it, and they're yelling to the FCC about it, which, hey, if I had to pay for something I thought I could get for free and have gotten for free, I'd probably be crying about it too. Funkaround posted the Engadget story that Brazilian judge Paulo Cesar de Carvalho of the Fifth Civil Court of Victoria has issued an injunction against the app Secret. That's the one where you get to tell secrets anonymously. Brazil's constitution bars anonymous attacks that do not allow you to defend yourself. Not only will Google and Apple need to remove Secret from the Brazilian app stores, but the judge ordered them to delete it from users' phones as well. They both have the capability to do this, but they generally do not, except in extreme circumstances. So we'll see if they appeal this. The Microsoft company was ordered to remove a similar app called Cryptic from Windows Phone. The companies have 10 days to comply or face fines of 20,000 reals per day. That's the equivalent of around $8,500 US.
I've seen those parades in Rio. There's no secrets. Everything's right out in front of you.
Well, I think that's the judge's argument. This is Rio. We don't have secrets here.
Right.
Get rid of that
right away.
SDC 111 turned us on to The Verge, reporting that Verizon will launch its own app store, at least The Verge passing that along from subscription-only outlet The Information. However, Verizon spokeswoman Deborah Lewis told Recode regarding an app store, "We have no plans to do that. Been there, done that." Verizon closed its Verizon Wireless app store last year, so that was fun while it lasted. I guess they're not doing it.
And zero tears are shed from anyone.
Oh yeah, no, they took away all my jokes about carriers giving us something we don't want, and thankfully so. We have no plans to do that is pretty much a flat denial. So. It's hard to read between the lines there. Yeah. Finally, Inga Aning submitted this one. Bloomberg got cozy with a person involved with the investigation of the community health systems breach. That's the one that saw 4.5 million health records stolen, and got that person to admit that the attackers used the Heartbleed vulnerability about a week after it was discovered. This would be the first known breach of a company using that very well branded vulnerability. They have since fixed it, but we'll see if any other companies come forth with breaches. They're like, yep, that was Heartbleed. A lot of people were worried about that back when it was announced. Yeah. And that is a look at the headlines. All right, so really, really tragic and weighty events with the YouTube video, which they have now said they believe is, in fact, James Foley, a reporter who's been missing in Syria. He was kidnapped in 2012. And the video starts to show him being beheaded, and then shows a picture of a body with a severed head as evidence that he has in fact been beheaded. They then show journalist Steven Sotloff on the ground and threatened that he would be next. This video is being taken down from YouTube quite frequently. YouTube prohibits content with gratuitous violence and removes such content when flagged by users. It also terminates accounts that are, quote, registered by members of designated foreign terrorist organizations that use YouTube in an official capacity to further its interests. And Twitter, which, as we mentioned in the headlines, has a new policy saying that family members can request pictures of recently deceased relatives be taken down, except when there are public interest factors such as newsworthiness.
Slippery term, that.
Yeah, so New Wexler, a Twitter public policy employee, told Matthew Ingram of GigaOM that screenshots of James Foley were being taken down from Twitter at the request of the family. However, there's a lot of arguments. In fact, some journalists had their accounts suspended temporarily because they had posted pictures and videos or links to them. That this is certainly newsworthy, and that Twitter shouldn't be applying that policy. But Dick Costello this morning said, we have been and are actively suspending accounts as we discover them related to this graphic imagery. And don't forget, there is a law in the United States that says you cannot provide aid and comfort to an organization that the government here has determined to be a terrorist organization, and allowing propaganda, one could call it, to be disseminated could be considered that. So,
and we know that ISIS has been very proactive in using social media sites as a way to recruit members and propagate their information.
Yes. In fact, they're moving as these Twitter accounts get banned. They're moving to other accounts on Twitter. They're also moving to other systems. They've tried to launch on various paste bin type sites. They've tried to launch on Diaspora at the Join Diaspora server. Now, Diaspora works differently than Twitter. It's decentralized. The Join Diaspora server kicked them off, but they could certainly go to another Diaspora server potentially somewhere else. The question is, do they get enough of a splash? Remember, this isn't just about them disseminating information, or they'd just be doing it on the Onion router. This is about them having it in front of the world. They want their message to be seen.
Absolutely. Man, it's so troubled by all of this and so conflicted as well. When you first presented this idea to talk about on the show, I thought I knew, I knee-jerk felt very certain about the fact that this should not be out there for a myriad reasons. I didn't think anyone needed to see it to understand the gravity of the situation, and I think it does a lot of harm, especially in an era where Twitter and Facebook have autoplay videos in your stream, and you really don't have the choice to not view things anymore. They just, if they're in your stream, they start playing, and I find that personally very troubling. Even taking it out of the realm of political and out of the realm of something as heavy as this, as somebody who's just trying to avoid movie spoilers, I don't particularly like that feature, right?
All of a sudden, the trailer shows up in your timeline. You're like, and you could say, well, then you shouldn't follow that. But we're talking about Twitter, right? It's not that Jeff's following the Paramount Trailers account and seeing trailers. That would be fair. He's following me, and I just like, God, I'm so excited about The Hobbit, right? And I post a link to the trailer, and then it starts autoplaying. That's not, it's not like you want to throw away. Well, maybe you want to unfollow me for other reasons, but you don't want to necessarily unfollow every person because they might someday post a link you don't want to see.
Yeah, and then you take it into this realm, which is much more serious and much more dire, and I feel like those features aren't additive. Allow me to opt in, to use that term, to watching something that somebody has put into their feed. But and I mean, I have many thoughts on this. I also do feel like, especially in the light of what's going on in Ferguson this last week, where Twitter has been reporting the news and has been doing so in a manner that is far more open and far more quick and far more accurate than even the big news organizations have been able to do.
I always know what's going on in Ferguson first because my friend who lives in St. Louis texts me, open up Twitter. And I know exactly what he means now, which is like, I open up Twitter. The first time he did it, he said, open up Twitter and do #Ferguson. And that's when I found out what was going on at all.
Yeah.
And now he's like, it's, stuff's happening again. And I go immediately to Twitter and I'm up to speed. You're right.
And we see that across the world. I mean, even the Arab Spring stuff is being broken by social media first. And to have any company making decisions on what can be seen and can't be seen is worrisome from the perspective of a news organization, a decentralized populist news organization, which is what Twitter can serve as at its best. So I'm conflicted. I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, it's tough. There are two, I think, there's always more than one side to any story, but there's two very interesting takes on this that I saw on Twitter. In fact, I saw them through the Gigome article from Matthew Ingram. Sociologist Zeynep Tufekci wrote, "Free and offensive speech is a fundamental right, but so is the right to live in peace, free from ethnic violence." Now, that's in the context of her arguing that sometimes these sorts of messages can make a bad situation worse. They can inflame things, and there is a time to restrict them. And she thinks this is one of those times. I went to journalism school and I took journalism law, and I learned very, very well the lesson that free speech is freedom of speech for all the speech you like. There's always some kind of speech that every society, no matter how free they think, clamp down upon. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater is usually the most famous example of that, right? Mm-hmm. On the other side, Glenn Greenwald says, I don't want private corporations deciding what political speech is okay.
Right.
And he's saying Twitter isn't in a position to judge whether something should be allowed as free speech or not.
Or when things should be allowed, as you referenced earlier
right.
as well.
Yeah, yeah. And Google should not be in that position. I see merit to both these arguments. I think the tough one for the sociology side of it is, how do you stop this from getting out there? Now, granted, I had a difficult time, and I looked because of this story, in finding an unedited version of that video. It is difficult to find now. It was not difficult yesterday, though. Plenty of people have found it. I did find one that had actually kept up on YouTube because they blurred out the graphic parts, but you still got the sense of what the video did. I felt like that was actually a very responsible way to say, if you need to know what was in this video, here's a way to see it without having the full impact that they intended the video to have. So there's always a balance to be found in these things. And I think this is one of those areas where it is a test of Twitter to say, you know what, you are a platform here. And if journalists, trained journalists, respected journalists, not just, somebody who started their blog yesterday, but, professional journalists with a reputation are saying, look, we really need to share this, I think you need to listen to that.
Yeah. And, I think, too, about abuse on Twitter, which is a real problem, and which Twitter has, up to this point, pretty steadfastly refused to address. And yes, you can say that's free speech as well, but there are lines, and there are lines across which I don't think any Twitter user should be forced to deal with the kinds of not imagery, not video, just words, but words that make Twitter and any social media site a less effective place to be, a less desirable place to be. I have real issue with that as well, and I'm conflicted because I don't feel like people should have to deal with that. I don't feel like what is ostensibly a snuff film in this particular case needs to be seen by as many people as seem to be able to see it at this point. But I also don't ever want to restrict the flow of information, and certainly am not in favor of censorship. So it's a tough line to walk, and I don't know as a company how you're supposed to walk it.
Yeah, and this is where it goes from you see a company decide how much it really believes its own policy and its own ideology. Twitter has backed away from those abuse and bullying issues by saying, we are a platform. If enough people report it as abuse, we'll look into it, but we're not going to police Twitter. And I think they have a fair defense there. Mm-hmm. The thing that this particular issue has pointed out, many people have said there have been many other links to videos of beheadings, of propaganda from the Islamic State, of messages of hate that would seem to be right alongside of this one. Why is this one the one you go after? Well, the practical answer is you go after this one because this one is a lot more popular than those were. This one is grabbing headlines because it's an American reporter. For good or ill, that's the truth of the situation. But yeah, it puts Twitter up against the wall to say, like, these were reported. Why didn't you do those?
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough. I just lost video on you. Am I not seeing you, or is the whole world not seeing you? Whoop. There we go. And we're back. Whoop.
Yeah, sorry about that. My camera.
That's okay. Yeah, it's I think that Twitter just decided not to see your video anymore, and that's the problem that you have.
You can stop my video, but you can't stop my audio.
Yeah, it's it's a rough thing. I find myself, even when we're basically arguing about newsworthiness and defining that, it's almost like the same argument you would have 50 years ago or now about what is pornography. It's these terms that I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it, that kind of thing. And I personally don't know how newsworthy seeing that full unedited video is. I don't want to see it. I don't need to see it. I feel like a description of what it is that I read online and in from journalists is as effective to me as seeing it would have been. But it's a sliding scale, and I'm reluctant to say there's a hard and fast rule that yes, Twitter should be doing this or no, they should not. Even though my initial gut instinct was no, nobody should be watching. Yes, you should be shutting this down.
Yeah.
For me, the big issue is autoplay. I don't want to be subjected to watching things that I don't want to opt into. I don't want to have to click on to see.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair and probably the easiest to solve of this sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Is to the one video of this that I did watch, the one that had blurred out parts, also had a warning before it saying this is of a graphic nature. You shouldn't watch this if you're sensitive or of underage. And I thought that was very responsible. It couldn't have autoplayed no matter where it was. So that to me is the way to handle this. When I read about this last night, I did not want to watch it. I like you thought, you know what? I can read a description. That's enough. When I started to prepare for this show, I realized I needed to know, to form a perfect opinion about it, how much they showed. Because from some of the descriptions, it was hard to tell, did they show the entire beheading? Did they show part of a beheading? Could it not have been him?
Right.
You start to have questions about the veracity of the video. Are they trying to pull something or pull the wool over people's eyes, etc., that only watching it can really help you form an opinion on it. I felt like watching the video that had the blurred out was enough for me to be able to satisfy those questions that I had. That and the FBI coming out and saying, yeah, we've verified this. We're pretty sure that's him. So I think there's a responsible way to handle these kinds of public issues, and Twitter isn't nailing it right out of the gate, but they're learning, and I hope they learn it right. I will say YouTube seems to have a better handle on it, probably oddly because they've had to deal with taking down copyrighted music videos for so long.
Yeah,
they just have a better way of being able to censor things.
The thing I really take issue with from Ingram's article on GigaOM is he comes right out and says you owe it to the journalist to watch it, and I just fundamentally disagree with that on its face. But I don't think that you honor anybody by seeing the ultimate sacrifice that they paid. I would venture to guess that he would not request that of anybody, were his wishes clear. It's a horrible thing, and it sucks that there's so much horrible stuff that we have to sift through now, but it is good that this information is getting out. I mean, outrage and disappointment and disgust are the right emotions to elicit from it, and I just don't. You don't want to empower these guys in any way, but
yeah, I hear you. Well, I don't think we're going to solve it, and I don't think Twitter is going to solve it immediately. But I hope this sheds some perspective on it and helps you form your own opinion about it. Let us know what you think. Feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Looking real quick at the other business we have of the show. Tomorrow on the calendar, August 21st, Salesforce.com has their earnings. Our pick of the day is a little more fun. It comes from Richard Gunther, who, as you know, he says to me, because I do, he podcasts as a hobby. And he says, like many people in the business world, I'm on Skype and Hangouts daily for conference calls and meetings as part of my day job. I'd like to recommend a Mac utility called Push to Talk. Push to Talk adds a software-driven mute button to your Mac. You can define your own key combo to use it, and it mutes your mic inputs system-wide, so you don't have to go fumbling for the mute button on Skype or Hangouts. You can also configure it so that it only transmits when you hold the keyboard combination you've defined, but I think the toggle setting most useful. It's available in the Mac App Store, costs 99 cents, and a pro tip, I found that I needed to reboot for the utility to function properly after installing. From Richard Gunther in lovely Annapolis, Maryland. Thanks for the pick, Richard. This is one of those things that's going to make a lot of people go, you could make a macro for that, but not everybody wants to make a macro or knows how to make a macro. And for 99 cents, it might be worth your trouble to get Push to Talk. It's kind of like, I don't know, do you ever use Vent, Jeff?
Oh, sure. Playing
the Push to Talk on Vent? Yeah.
Yep.
It reminds me of that. Exactly. So check it out. We'll have a link in the show notes at dailytechnewsshow.com. Send your picks to feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com, and you can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Got a couple of emails. I want to hold a couple of these till tomorrow, but I wanted to talk about this last one here from Leon. He says, on the story about Google's attempts to find new users by offering some of its services to children, I would think this would also enable Google to market Chromebooks to kids and for lower grades in schools, and also make it easier to create separate kid-friendly accounts for Android devices. Was just wondering your thoughts. Did you hear about Google? The rumor, the information is reporting that Google is trying to develop separate versions of their sites that would be COPPA compliant or COPPA compliant. So that children under 13 could register for them.
No, I did not see that. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I was like, Molly and I were talking about it yesterday, and we were saying like this could be sort of like a Disney Channel. It could offer some better ways for educational services to use it. And I mentioned, and they certainly wouldn't mind having more people in their user base as they grow up and become full adult users. That could be
integrate them
fully
in that Google infrastructure right away, man.
Yeah. And Google has an educational program right now, but it's targeted towards high school because you need kids to be over 13, older than 13. So Leon's got a really good point. Suddenly you can start to have an educational program for the lower grades. And I think they do have an educational program for the lower grades, but it's so much easier to roll out your whole suite if you have these kid-friendly versions of your apps that can go in them as well. So yeah, selling a lot of Chromebooks.
I think if the news stays as dark as it's been, I might want to use the kid-friendly Google search. Just show me pictures of Mickey Mouse, please.
Just every once in a while for relief. Just keep it outside the door for a day. I hear you, man. Well, thank you, Jeff Kanata, both for just being on the show and for being willing to dive into this topic today. I really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. Absolutely. Always great to be here. Anytime.
Twitter.com/Jeff Kanata. That's 2 N's. Jeff, well, there's 2 F's too. JEFFCANNATA. And check out We Have Concerns. It's wehaveconcerns.com for the show.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then you guys have launched your Patreon as well.
We did. We're following your lead and supporting the show on Patreon. As as dark as we've been talking, as kind of depressing as the news has been lately, I like to think that We Have Concerns is a bright spot. It's a comedy show. We talk about silly, fun stories and try to make light of these silly things with some improv comedy, some science and philosophy. It's a fun show. People seem to really dig it, so I hope your listeners will check it out as well. WeHaveConcerns.com.
Please do, and go to patreon.com/wehaveconcerns. If you find some value in what you find at wehaveconcerns.com, give a little of that value back to Jeff and Mr. Anthony Carboni.
That's right.
If you didn't catch that, he's the other host. Yeah. We'll have Anthony on the show soon. Actually, I'm going to have him on next week. Thank you to our Patreons. 4,225 of you have found the value in this show. We appreciate that as well. If you'd like more ways to figure out how to donate to us, go donate to We Have Concerns first. And if you have anything left over, dailytechnewsshow.com/donate is the place for that. Don't forget, you can have a voice in what stories we cover at our subreddit, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. Leave us a voicemail, 512-593-2459. The show is live on Alpha Geek Radio, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 Pacific, Monday through Friday. Mobile.alphageekradio.com is your best URL for that. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. We're going to have Peter Wells, editor of Reckoner Australia, on the show tomorrow. But before we're out of here, we have a longish message from Jim Thatcher, who's a specialist in trade. And we got kind of talking about importing toys on yesterday's show. So I wanted to play this as we head out. Take it away, Mr. Thatcher.
Hi, Tom and Jenny and Jeff. It is Big Jim from Hangar 18 here in beautiful Dayton, Ohio. I just wanted to call in because, well, sorry, Jeff, I have to say it. I have concerns. On yesterday's show with Molly Wood, Molly had brought up the point that toys are duty-free, and that's why we have all these toys being dumped in the United States. We've got all these toys everywhere, and blah, 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 blah. Molly, I love you, but you're a little wrong here. First of all, yes, it is true that toys are duty-free. I'm a licensed customs house broker. It's my job to represent importers who have cargo coming in the United States, be they individuals or corporations or partnerships or whatever, to the federal government to make sure that those goods can actually come into the U.S., either for personal use, like they're my home personal effects, they're going to come back to my house, or they are commercial goods that are going to be sold to either other companies or sold to the public at large. That being said, yes, toys are duty-free, but so is a bunch of other things. There is capital machinery. Almost all capital machinery is duty-free because we're trying to promote a manufacturing base here in the United States. The computer that's currently recording this podcast is duty-free. The cell phone that I'm recording the audio for this podcast is duty-free. So just because something's duty-free doesn't necessarily mean that there's a whole bunch of dumping effort to put that into the United States. It does entice people to do it, but it doesn't necessarily cause it. Remember, you still have to have somebody who wants to buy the article so the article can be made, so then that the article can be shipped. On top of that, you also have other laws and regulations, even if there's duty or there's no duty on something coming into the United States. So let's go back to toys. The Consumer Product Safety Administration requires various testing for children's toys. So, lead paint. You have to prove via independent analysis, which is expensive, over and over and over again, that a toy does not contain lead paint. Is it a choking hazard? Again, independent analysis, you have to either prove that no, it's not a choking hazard, or yes, it is a choking hazard, and then you have to follow very strict placarding requirements to actually get that cargo to come into the United States. Is the article going to touch food or the mouth in any way, such as teething rings or articles like spoons? Those items have to go through Food and Drug Administration. Is it going to be made of anything of animal origin? That's Fish and Wildlife Administration. Could it be some foreign plant material? You could be dealing with the Agriculture Department at that point. So there's all these different myriad of agencies when you're bringing something in the United States that also has a say, regardless of what the duty rate is. In addition to that, you also have the wonderful world of anti-dumping duties. These are additional duties that are levied against articles coming in the United States that the federal government has found that have foreign entities that are trying to drive U.S. companies out of business. A good example of this at one point was ball bearings. There was almost a 1,200% duty rate on ball bearings in addition to their regular duty rate, so that they couldn't be brought into the United States without paying these excessive rates. And then you've got the other lovely world that we're all familiar with on the Daily Tech News Show, patents and trademark infringements. Hooray! Section 337 investigations, which we always hear about with regard to Google, Samsung, Apple, Motorola, and the myriad of other players in the field. Those articles also have to be stopped at the border before they come in the United States. That's another set of legal requirements that you have to deal with before something can even approach the borders. So I hope this little rant has been able to give you some information, give you some dialogue, give some information that you can use, and realize that just because something's duty-free doesn't mean we should all be importing it. Love from Dayton, Ohio. I'm Big Jim. Peace out. The Daily Tech News Show is brought.
This podcast is part of the Frog Pants Studios Network. For more information about this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio program so good, it's like you're there.
All right.
I just want to say I don't want duty on anything.
No more duty.
Come on. No duty.
Free the duty. No, I don't want free duty. I want... Hell no. All right. Thank you, Big Jim, for the insights. Appreciate that. I'm going to start levelating this. And, well, we don't really have that many top vote getters. Showbot.replex.org is where the titles get submitted, Jeff. El Khalif developed this for us out of the chat room. People can do bang S, the exclamation part S, and then a title gets sent to the Showbot, and then folks can actually vote.
Yeah, we do that with DLC as well. It's really fun.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very helpful, isn't it?
What are the contenders?
Well, we've got Twitter's Mortal Struggle, Megalopolis with C's and Domestic Problems, Freedom of Censorship, weighty,
Ooh.
Books Aren't Nooks, You Can Stop My Video, but You Can't Stop My Audio. That's a little long, but funny. China's Domestic Problems, Torch All the Vines,
Not bad.
Censored Freedom Policy. Yeah, people were not feeling funny today. I don't blame them.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Looks like
that
Twitter's
first one.
Mortal Struggle has got
I like that.
3 votes.
It's,
Maybe go with that.
Yeah.
We got another minute or so before I have to make the call. So if you want to get your votes in, showbot.replex.org. I like that he put in a caps button for me because the blog only shows things in all caps. So sometimes certain jokes get lost in the translation if you cap it all. Looks like Twitter's Mortal Struggle is going to be the...
Yeah, I like that one. That's good.
Yeah, it's well phrased, CS803.
All right, well, I'm going to, unless there's more, I'm going to...
Yeah, I just hang out while I edit. Usually
Okay.
Jenny keeps people entertained, but if you need to go. Yeah.
Well, I can hang out if you want to... Well, you'll be working. I can do some sort of dance while the people are waiting for you to edit.
You don't have to, but if you feel like it, please.
I think I will take off, but I appreciate it anytime. Anytime, please hit me up. This is
absolutely.
always good. Yeah.
And I guess we're going to be on Cord Killers.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah,
Pretty
you and
soon.
Anthony both. That'll be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
All right, I'll see you then, man.
All right, thanks, buddy. Talk to you later.
It's just you and me, chat room. Peter Wells is on tomorrow, TVZ Gone. Yeah, I did mention that, but it kind of got lost because then you got distracted by Big Jim. Let's see. Oh, right, I rebooted. Every time I reboot my computer, I lose all the pre-filled ID3 tag entries. Fascinating, I know. Twitter's Mortal Struggle. Well, I don't know why the camera went off today. I have a new battery in there. My theory was that with the battery in there, it was causing it to turn off, but now I'm thinking the camera maybe has issues. I think it didn't go off during Sword and Laser. Oddly. Maybe it's a heat thing. not cooling itself down as well or something. Oh, well. Take some of that Patreon money and buy a new camera, I guess. Can elect a new camera. Well, what I did figure out is that you don't need the battery in there. So, I don't know. But with a new battery, why would that? I can try it without the battery tomorrow and see what happens. I could keep it in a freezer. Torch all the vines. All right, I'm exporting right now. Could be haunted. It's probably haunted. CS803 is probably right. Had some quality drop down. I think that was probably Janisco. I think that was probably connection related, not camera related. Yeah, it does that every time I turn it on, though. Fiox, it flashes that no memory card thing. That's just standard. I don't think that is. I don't think that has anything to do with the problem. Water cool your camera. Just stick it in a bucket of ice. Hey, I challenge you, camera. I'll just challenge my camera to the ice bucket challenge and problem solved. Done. But probably ghosts. Probably haunted. I think that's the more logical solution. I mean, if we were going to bring science into it, I think we'd find that it's most likely haunted. A haunted camera. A haunted CMOS sensor. Uh-oh, John Holzer joined the chat room. Hello, John Holzer. You make me thirsty for beer. Hawkwood left at the same time. Are they the same person? Or are they ghost? Get a GoPro and mount it to one of the dogs, TVZ Guns suggests. You know how many shaky camera complaints I'd have to deal with then? All right. We are exported. And the title is finalized. That's how it works, ladies and gents. I scared John Holzer away. Tech news for August 20th. I sometimes feel like I'm cheating when I put for the subject tags on archive.org just tech and news, but it's faster that way and it's perfectly accurate. By the way, if anyone is interested, the novel that I attempted to write about my dogs as private detectives is in the second edit and going well. So maybe available as an ebook within a month. Probably not by DragonCon, but maybe September sometime. And you never point out people entering and leaving the chat. It's Twitch Streamer 101. I know, T2T2. I know. I'm breaking the rules. No wonder he left. I should find the pic of my dad holding a Kepler CMOS. Nice. Anyway, so ebook coming. And I will do an audiobook of Lot Beta. I promise. I just need to schedule it. It takes time, and I want to do it right. I have a special audiobook of United Moon Colonies with Veronica Belmont co-reading with me that I also want to publish on Audible. And that takes a little more because they have certain specs that you have to meet and everything. They're not ridiculously complicated. You just have to do it. So I've been waiting until I could actually get all that, get some time for all that. But those are the plans. Why do you keep playing? I don't... Well, thank you. Oh! Half of you think I'm nuts right now because you couldn't hear that. Okay. Those of you on Alpha Geek Radio heard what I heard. Those of you on YouTube did not. And you're like, what? New Toast 2 will not be released anytime soon. Okay, I think everything is posted. Jenny said she would still do show notes, but I'm not sure when they'll show up. So hopefully by the end of the day, you should get your show notes. And everything else is posted. Feels so empty sometimes when I don't say goodbye to anyone but you. But there we go. That's it. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow.